I'm going to set up an automated watering system. This sand has no nutrients in it, so I'm going to be pumping in fertilizer, basically tomato fertilizer. Tomato fertilizer works for everything, I read, pretty much. And it's just a liquid fertilizer you mix with water. I'll be pumping that in using Arduino to control the pumping duration. I'm going to pump it through tiny motors. Here's the motors. I just set up one today. So you can see the little motor, the little pump, and it's going to be able to pump, it's going to be able to draw in through one straw and pump out through the other. So I can stick one end in my nutrient mix and the other end inside the bag of whatever I'm growing. Rather than have a pump for each plant, I'm planning to pump from the pump into like a cottage cheese container or whatever, and then have a series of straws coming out of that going to each plant. So I only need one pump for every plant. Within reason, I might have like 3 of those setups across the basement or whatever. And with that system, I only need 3 pumps instead of 1 pump per plant. And the straw's diameter, inner diameter, can determine how much water is going to each plant. So if I know I have certain plants that need way more, I would make the inner diameter of the straw leading to that plant a bigger diameter, so they'd get more water. The ones that don't need much, I'd use a thinner diameter tube going from that central watering reservoir, which I fill with the pump. And then it just flows down through each tube into each plant and just drips onto it. And it will do that until that reservoir is empty. And that reservoir will get refilled like once a day or whatever, and it will then disperse evenly to all the plants according to the size or number of tubes running from that reservoir to each plant. That reservoir will be located higher than each plant, so that gravity will take it from there to each plant. And then we just need lighting. And I have these UV reptile bulbs. They're mercury vapor bulbs that give off UVA and UVB and full spectrum light. They're very, very bright. They're 160 watts. They're the ones that I did my DIY tanning video on. I believe those will work for plants, and I found them for $25 online. I ordered 4 of them. I have 2 already. That will be 6 total lights. These lights will be plenty bright enough. I know the plants don't need UV, but some people are doing studies that it can benefit them a little bit. So it's not like a necessary, but it could be a little bonus. And so those lights at $25 are way cheaper than buying grow lights, like marijuana lights, because grow lights, I did a lot of research, to buy really good ones can get into $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 per like let's say 3 foot by 2 foot area, $700 to light that. Whereas for $25 I can light that. And a matter of fact, for $25 with one of these lamps, I can light like a 3 foot by 8 foot area. How? I'm going to put it on a pulley system, like clotheslines pulleys that you pull and then the clothes go out across, like between 2 buildings, that type of pulley system. I'm going to set up a pulley system and put the light on that, and I'll have a motor turning which will bring the light out. So that light will be moving, and I'm going to have it move back and forth across all the plants. And I'll also have a motor that can reel it up and down. That will be mounted above it so that it can drop and heighten. So that way we'll have basically a CNC-based light setup based on 2 pulley systems that will enable us to move it in X and Y direction. And with that in place, we'll be able to light a whole wall, 8 feet by 3 feet of plants, hitting every different angle. And with reflected light, we'll hit everything because the walls are white in the basement anyway. So that's great reflection. In fact, that's the ideal reflection. Flat white is the best, they said. So we'll be able to light everything with 160 watts, and we'll need 3 or 4 of those total running 24/7, because we're not going to ever shut it off because it's going to be moving, so we don't need to shut it off. The plants will be in semi-darkness when it moves away from them, and then it'll move back toward them, so they won't be under constant light. Plus, this thing gives off a lot of heat, so that'll allow them to cool down when it's not by them. The added heat is actually good. A lot of the more expensive grow lights have infrared light coming off of them, and this thing definitely gives off infrared, and it gives off full spectrum, and it gives off UV. So it's got the full anything you could want for a plant for only $25, and it's incredibly powerful, 160 watts. It's the best solution, trust me. I've done a ton of research. Nobody else is doing this though. I'm the only person. Everyone else is buying super expensive LED setups and stuff. I even looked into DIYing the LED. This is even way cheaper than DIYing the LED, provided that you buy high quality name brand LEDs that aren't like scams. Supposedly there's a lot of LEDs that are scams somehow, where they give off a lot of wattage but not a lot of actual photons of light per watt or something like that, I was reading. So I didn't want to take a chance because I read a lot of stuff, but that could have been misinformation being broadcast heavily to try to get people to buy certain light manufacturers' lights. And so they could be creating a lot of lies saying, don't buy lights from these Chinese sellers, buy it from us. And it could all be lies. So I'm not sure on that. It could be a misinformation campaign. Okay, so this one's planted perfectly, and it's our green grapes. So I'm going to go ahead and label it, and then I'm going to put it next to a windowsill for now. I'm doing windowsill for everything, but some of the stuff is going to start getting huge, and then there won't be enough windowsill. So we gotta keep working on getting more dirt and more lighting every day, because we're in a race against time. In order to plant, we're doing like 3 feet by 30 feet of gardening in the basement. 3 by 30. And I'm doing all kinds of stuff. Watermelons, cantaloupe, honeydew, grapes. I mean, you name it. We got everything. Peaches, corn, potatoes, carrots, pecans, hazelnuts, cranberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, kiwi, banana, avocado. Guys, trust me, we got it all. But I need a lot of dirt for that. So this is like so we're gonna like add dirt incrementally. So this is like the mid-size. So we're starting out like just like small little cubes of dirt like this. Like maybe like 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches cubed. Just to grow seedlings. So basically the seeds turn into seedlings, which are like little sprouts. Once those start getting like this tall, we're going to transfer it to this mid-sized type bag of a freezer bag. So I'm in a race because those seedlings are starting to grow and they're going to have to be transferred to bags like this. So I got to get more and more dirt. So every day I got to dig up dirt and then get more bags and everything. So we need dirt, and we need dirt fast. We need watering systems. We need watering systems fast. We need lighting to light these because we only have so much windowsill space. Once things start growing and needing to be moved off that windowsill, we need lighting. So we got to get the lighting going fast. I've got enough lighting now, but we got to set up those pulley systems. We got to actually wire the lighting. We got to get it on and running. So we got to move. On top of all that, I got to fix my wife's car. I got 2 weeks to fix it. Total engine rebuild in 2 weeks. So we're doing all this stuff all at once. It's going to be insane. All right, let me just read chat and then... Well, actually... Yeah, let me read chat. Okay. 1,000 plus lumen, it will be fine. It's really not... Why don't you explain this to your wife? No, it's not weed. So yeah, grapes are great. You're gonna need drainage. No, I'm not. I have a belief system on that. Okay, check it. I've done a ton of research. I believe you need drainage because you water too much. You know what people do with drains? You guys want to know what people do with drainage systems? They fill their pot with they fill their plant pot with water, right? And then they hold it over a bathtub as it drains out. Once it stops dripping, they put it back wherever in their house. That's your drainage. Now think about that. If they just watered less water, they wouldn't have to hold it over the bathtub and they wouldn't have to drain it. The draining system is idiot-proofing it. It means I'm going to put way more water than the soil can contain on its own, like a sponge. How much water can a sponge contain? There's a finite amount, and then after that it starts pouring out the bottom. So the soil or the wet sand or whatever acts as a sponge. It holds X amount of water, and after even one drop past the maximum water can hold is inserted, the water begins dumping out. Okay? Now, if you don't do that, if you don't give too much water, if you just give the retention max of the sand or soil, or less, doesn't even have to be the full retention amount, then no drippage will occur because the soil can contain that. So then you don't need a drain. So the drain is just an idiot proofing to make sure you don't overwater. It lets your overwatering flood out. But if you just are a little more careful, a little more intelligent with the watering quantity, you don't need a drainage system at all. And that simplifies it hugely when doing pot-based, not pot as in weed, I mean vessel-based, as in not planted in the backyard, but planted in a container-based planting, we'll say. Container-based planting, you don't need drainage if you don't overwater. Now, it can be any material. I say sand, because I can get unlimited free sand. So why sand? Why not actual compost, right? Well, first of all, if you buy compost, it's expensive. If you have to make it, that's a lot of work and time, and you have to do this months in advance. I'm going go right now. Not only that, but you have to maintain it then. You have to keep adding more compost. You got to fertilize it. That doesn't work too well with containers. That means you're, having to dig into your root system to get dirt that's been depleted out? What if it's a perennial that's just going to be there forever? Well, you can add fertilizer on the top, I guess, but guess what? At that point, you're fertilizing anyways. It's not really a compost system. This is depleted soil that you're just sprinkling fertilizer on the top, letting the water soak it in. Why not just start with depleted soil to begin with then if you're going to end up doing that? So that's why I'm going with sand. Now, I'm going to use a salt-based tomato fertilizer. You mix it in water, you pour it in. Now people say, well, no, you can't do that because then salt will build up in the sand over time. Wrong. That's if you over-fertilize. If you don't over-fertilize, plants actually use the salt. They'll drink in the salt. So if you under-fertilize, and maybe once every 5 waterings you actually include fertilizer, the other times it's just plain water, the plain water will soak up whatever salt was left in the soil from 4 or 5 waterings ago when you used fertilizer that one time. And because salt is so dissolvable in water, it will dissolve into the water, and as the plants drink that water, they're going to drink in that leftover salt. All the salt you put in then will end up inside the plants, and that's fine. The plants can handle a certain amount of salt. Just don't give it a lot. So I say just keep it to a minimum. That's my theory on that. Keep the fertilization and salt to a minimum. If you need more fertilizer than the salt-based system's allowing, then that's a problem. So we would need to find then alternative fertilizer solutions. I think emulsified fish poop is a good option, which I have access to because I'm raising shrimp, and I'm pumping out dirty shrimp water full of kind of ammonia and nitrates and whatever, shrimp crap, basically. I'm pumping that out daily and putting in a little fresh water. So I should be able to, over time, especially if the shrimp get bigger, I should be able to get a lot of shrimp poop water and just use that as my fertilizer. That's fine. I could just stir it up real good, make sure it's nice and dissolved. Boom. So I might actually do that. Emulsified fish poop, basically. And that's full of nutrients for the plants. So basically then I'm doing aquaponics in a way. No, it's not in a way. That would literally be aquaponics. So I might be doing aquaponics and not hydroponics after all. So we'll see. But I might experiment with both. So no, you don't need drainage, and that's going to simplify my piping. Water goes in the top, that's it. No soil changes, no nothing. Just water goes in the top, light goes in the top, that's it. And then plants come out and they're ready for picking when they're ripe. Too high nutrient concentration in your solution will burn and kill the roots. Okay, so I know about that. So you just gotta not give a whole lot. You just need to be very conservative with watering and with fertilization. I would say fertilize every other time or every fifth time and see if that's enough. If it seems like it's not getting enough fertilizer, you add a little more and you just tweak it. You're better off to under fertilize than over fertilize is kind of the consensus I'm pulling. Reverse square law when placing lights. I don't know about what that means. Buy lights after lumen, not wattage. I already bought the UVA, UVB, reptile, basking bulbs, 160 watts. They give off insane light. I'm not worried about it. I mean, these things are bright. It's insane. Like, I'm sure it's bright enough. I'm sure. Roots need oxygen. I know about that. That's why I'm going to under super conservatively water. If you don't water much, the plant's going to drink whatever water you put in pretty much right away, right? Also, the sand is going to spread that water out and distribute it from the top where you poured it in throughout the entire sand base. Then evaporation begins. The upper sand will become dry first as evaporation sucks away, and then water will travel upward and make its way out. If you just give a little bit of water, it's going to be moving throughout that whole cycle. It's going to first drop by gravity down, and then it's going to be drawn up as evaporation and the plant's roots suck it up. So, in theory, plenty of oxygen will come in as long as you water minimally so that the upper soil is generally dry. As long as you keep everything generally pretty dry and just barely moist, then plenty of oxygen can come in. But if you're drenching it with water, then that's going to cause root rot. So really all it comes down to is you don't need anything fancy. Just don't overwater it. Just minimally water. And then you'll get plenty of oxygen. Drainage is not important. I've already explained that drainage is for when you overwater. I'm going to underwater so I won't need it to drain out. Whatever water I pour in, the plants plus evaporation will take care of. I'm not going to pour so much water in that I need a drain system. No, that's overcomplicating. Now you need drainage piping and stuff. Now you've got a potential leaking point of your bucket or your sandbag or whatever. I don't want leaks. So nothing's going to penetrate the bag. Unless the roots bust their way through, which is fine. I'll have to deal with that if it happens. I can prune the roots off if they do that, maybe. I don't know. Might just let them stay in the air with extra oxygen, whatever. I don't know. I'll deal with that when it happens, if it happens. But yeah, drainage also means you're wasting fertilizer and water. You're giving more than you needed. That's going against what I want. I want to do barely enough water. Just the minimum. Also, if you do drains, you're going to deal with the problem with sand doesn't drain well anyways. I don't think. People that try to run hydroponics with sand, the plants drowned because they're used to running a lot more water in, and it doesn't leave the sand very quickly. Whereas if you just use clay balls or whatever, or like the coconut mulch, whatever, different things that are used more traditionally in hydroponics, when they do that, the water just pours right through it like nothing. It just drains out immediately. But with sand, it doesn't. Sand can retain a ton of water, which means the roots rot. So that's why you can't just have a drain system and just dump water in and have it draining at a high speed with sand. That's why nobody uses sand for hydroponics. But if you just water a little bit and you're not relying on drainage, you're just giving just barely enough to keep the plant alive. The plant's going to drink whatever you put in. Then the sand can stay relatively dry or just barely moist. That's it. That's my strategy. No holes with needles. Think about it too. If you put holes in the bag, not only are you going to be wasting fertilizer, which will leave only the salt behind. So now you've got salt in the sand, the fertilizer drains out, wasting the fertilizer, leaving salt deposits behind. That's bad. You want the plants to drink whatever fertilizer you put in. You don't want any escaping. Also, because if the water drains out, most likely the fertilizer will not. The fertilizer will get trapped up in the sand. Only water will make it through pinholes. So then you're removing the carrier of the fertilizer. So now the fertilizer returns to its powder form, and it collects and it collects and it collects, and then once the roots find it, it's going to be too much. So you want the fertilizer to remain in the water. You don't want the water leaving that pot except through the roots drinking it. That's the only way you want the water exiting. Otherwise, you're going to end up with salt deposits. Also, those salt deposits will plug whatever pinholes you put in the bottom of the bag. Over time, calcification and salt buildup will block whatever pinholes you make. So the drainage wouldn't last anyways. So that's a bad long-term plan. You're better off just to barely give enough water. That's the solution. I think I heard the baby. The baby might be up. There's more I have to say on it, but I'd say that's the gist. I don't believe in drainage at all. I think drainage is for people that don't know how to water the correct amount. And they just want to have a pump with a constant flow rate, set it and forget it. That's what drainage is for. Or water it. You can water it way too much. Doesn't matter. It's going to drain out anyways. Drains are for people that want no responsibility over pump quantity. If you're going to water with precise, carefully thought out, measured amounts of water and create intelligent watering systems that are microcontroller based, even possibly putting moisture sensors connected to your microcontroller that actually monitor and meter everything. If you have all this automation, then there is no need for drainage. And also, drainage could allow sand to drain out. So now you're dealing with having to clean up all this drained out fertilizer and sand, which is going where? Piling up on the floor or whatever. No, we don't want that. We don't want to waste anything. We don't want to deal with anything. We're just going to give just barely enough, and the roots will drink it up. Boom. Water nutrients will just collect at the bottom, just piling up. No, that's not true. You're picturing water nutrients mixed up, right? Went to the bottom of the bag, right? Now you're picturing the next day he does it again, more piles up. Wrong. If it's still at the bottom of the bag, they're not getting any more water until that's gone. That's what you're not grasping. There will be no more watering until the plant drinks what it's already gotten. So I can monitor moisture of the soil. Once the plants have drank all of the water and nutrients, then they'll get more. And when I say all, I don't mean it's going to be a desert and the plant dies in between waterings, but sort of like that's what we're aiming for. It's going to be like the plant's desperate and it's going to start chugging because I've watered only just enough. That's the idea. You want to make the plant desperate for water, because if you're doing that, you're knowing that you're not overwatering. You're not going to deal with root rot. You don't have to worry about drainage, and you're guaranteed not to have piling up of any nutrients or anything, because the plant's going to literally drink every drop you put in. That's the key. The plant's going to drink what you put in. It's not going to evaporate out. It's not going to drain out. You're not going to have concentrations of built up nutrients. No, 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 no. The plant's going to drink it all like a straw in a milkshake. You're just going to give just enough so it's going to drink it. Everything that's getting put in there is going into the plant. It's not going to be drained out. It's not going to be evaporated out. It's going to be primarily drink. And so that's the key. We're going to do very minimal watering. All right, so that's the plan, and I believe it's going to work. If you give the right amount, it'll work. All right, so I'm going to go get the baby. I'm going to keep working, but I'll probably be turning on the stream on and off from time to time throughout the day. I'm not going to just leave it on, though.